Welcome to Marcor Studios, where here we will be interviewing different industry professionals and educating our homeowners as well as the industry as a whole. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Marcor Studios. Today we are here with Joe Villani, Sturdy Joe.
Sturdy
from
Sturdy Homes.
Yes, from Sturdy Homes.
Sturdy Home Inspections. I actually have two companies. Started as Sturdy Home Inspections in 2017. Started doing home inspections, and then that evolved into doing energy code work, manual HVAC design. That's where I started Sturdy Homes, just to keep the two separate.
Yep, smart.
And then Sturdy Joe. Yeah, Sturdy Joe was born more recently doing podcast, Knowledgeable Homeowner Podcast. Gina's a guest on. The episode should be out soon. And
looking forward to that.
Yeah, just spreading some knowledge about homeownership. Myself, when people ask, like, what do I do? Because I do a couple different
You're
services.
like me. You got a little bit of a different dynamic, but they all feed into one another.
Yeah, my cute little thing is, like, I help homeowners become happy in their homes by optimizing their comfort and their efficiency. And I've worked through that because through the different services I offer as a home inspector, as an HVAC designer, as an energy code tester, that is the consistent through all of it. Like, even when I'm doing a home inspection, my goal is for that potential home buyer to be happy in their home, to be comfortable in their home, and in a different sense, to be efficient. Not efficient in, necessarily their monthly PSE&G bill, but efficient in, expenses and what's going to come up. Because I think in homeownership, that's the biggest problem. People are so afraid of, like, a surprise expense.
Yeah, of course.
You know how it is. Most of the expenses, for the most part, you could have seen coming as a knowledgeable person in your home. But it's always kind of like the deer in the headlights thing. Like, I had no idea, and a plumber came in, and it was $20,000.
Well, it's like for us every day, we rip a roof, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we needed 30 sheets of plywood, and it's all of a sudden my fault. Like,
yeah.
No. And then they're like, well, it's a bait and switch. I don't have X-ray vision. I don't know. Yeah, but again, it's an unforeseen expense, and people get nervous.
And there's definitely things. You open up a wall, you start opening up wall cavities, and different story.
Yeah, for sure.
But with a lot of the systems and a lot of certain things, like if they go to gut a bathroom that's blue and pink from the 60s, and the plumber's upcharging them because the mechanicals in the wall are old, it's like everybody knew that the mechanicals were going to be old, except the homeowner.
Yep.
So that's where the efficiency side for the home inspection comes in. Obviously, I give them tips about actual efficiency.
Yeah.
But yeah, comfort, efficiency, happiness is kind of like my little shtick, because I found that consistently through the different services.
So you're not like the average home inspector that's going and just like checking a box and giving a report. You're actually looking at a level of efficiency. What else? Like, if they're going to buy it, hey, you might want to look into X, Y, and Z of making this more efficient.
I've been in the inspection industry since 2017. And it sounds funny because that seems like so recently, but it's a decent amount of time now, especially
not that recent.
as the younger person. And something happened in real estate in the year 2020 when the pandemic happened. It shifted the real estate market, and it really is like a BCAD for real estate. Like, I feel like the way the markets work, it's been such a strong seller's market since. So I was one of the inspectors working before that changed. So I observe, and I have like a love-hate relationship with the inspection industry, but I don't tout myself as like a special inspector, or I'm better, or I'm the best. I am just unique, the same way pretty much the majority of the great home inspectors. There's a lot of really solid home inspectors, a lot of crappy ones. There's a lot of really solid home inspectors that are busy every day, and everybody's just specialized in their own way.
Yep.
My mentor in home inspections was a union plumber in New York City. And obviously, when he does his home, he's an older guy, retired from the plumbers union, but he does 5 inspections a day. He's probably going to hammer the plumbing systems a little harder than possibly the roof.
Yep.
If you were doing a home inspection, you're going to go off about the roof. You're still knowledgeable about all the systems that you have to do.
Yeah.
So it's just being in the energy side of things. Those energy-related systems are definitely a focus of mine. But because what I do is kind of vague in a sense, like a HERS rating, it's like it does encompass a lot of things.
So give us what is a HERS rating for those who may not know what that is?
So specifically, a HERS rating is a system to determine how much energy a home is going to use. And that's like the actual idea of what a HERS rating is. How we use a HERS rating in the construction world is the building departments have found a way to use a HERS rating and a HERS rater, which is the person who does the rating, an energy tester and energy rater, to determine if the new construction or the addition of a home is code compliant.
Okay.
So that's where we have a HERS rating, and it's just a process. The building departments have found a way to use that process to kind of do the work for them. And that's because energy efficiency is complicated. 30 years ago, if you were building a house, you would have the walls open, you'd have the pink fiberglass bats in the wall.
Yep.
The inspector would look at it, would say R15 or whatever the code was at the time, thumbs up.
Check the box.
There's prescriptive. That's what was prescribed. R13, R15, R30, they would look at it and it was good. But that's not truly how energy efficiency works in a house. You can have a pink fiberglass bat in the wall, but that's not to say that the wall is framed differently, that there's more window or door area, how airtight it is.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that go into
looping in your light calculations even into these.
Exactly. Solar heat gain, the efficiency of the HVAC ducts.
Yep. Doing all your heat calculations.
Exactly.
We're seeing these things being forced by building departments to actually even get building permits now. Mm-hmm. And it's not even, we started seeing it on the East End, and we're seeing it very, very quickly trickle west.
Yeah, I mean, well, the East End has the New York stretch code. See, what's so crazy with, I bring up the HERS rating thing because it's like, what's a HERS rating? Because it's like, technically it's this.
Yeah.
The building departments are using it to determine code, but the building departments are still at their discretion to determine what they want. Because I can do one house in islip where we do it this way. And there's another house in islip where I guess the plan reviewer forgot what the words were that they wanted to ask for, and they just want a blower door test, which a blower door test is part of the HERS rating process.
Correct.
So now we'll have one house built with just one step, and another house had to pay more for the whole process. And
is that just now something that's like a clerical type of thing?
It's 100% because the New York State code, the New York State 2020 Energy Conservatory Code, getting technical, they want UA compliance, which is part of the HERS rating process in the beginning, and then they want a pre-drywall inspection, which is part of the HERS rating process. If the ducts are in an uninsulated attic or an uninsulated basement, they want us to test how leaky the ducts are, which is a duct leakage test.
Okay.
Which I think is one of the most important things for energy efficiency. There's a lot of discrepancies about what really matters. People don't like houses too airtight. HERS ratings determine how airtight a house is. So that's a big argument. But when your ducts are airtight, nobody can argue that a sealed duct is better than a duct just blowing air into the attic.
Yeah.
So technically that's a part of the process that is constantly overlooked by the towns. And then the blower door test at the end.
Yep.
So every town plan reviewer has kind of fallen into their groove of what they want and what they don't want. And yeah, I've noticed some of the town, actually also too, a big part of the HERS rating process is the ventilation. Because we build the house so tight, we do need to bring some fresh air in. We just like to control.
We're seeing it all the time.
The sick house syndrome is going to be a huge issue in the next 10 years.
Explain what the sick house syndrome is.
So very common term you'll hear people say is a house needs to breathe.
Yes.
Because we breathe and we need to breathe air. So when we're breathing in air and we're blowing out carbon dioxide, there's also excess humidity, dust, particles from, chemicals from furniture, rugs,
animals,
dander. There's so many indoor air quality issues that we actually need the outside air to filter that out. Yeah. So we call it fresh air and stale air. The problem with the house needs to breathe issue is that when you have a regular house built in the 50s, it's drafty. Air comes through cracks, through windows, through the floor system, through the attic. We don't know where that air is coming from, and it's also not conditioned. We pay money to condition our air conditioning. So when it's 40 degrees out, we want it to be 72 inside, we have to heat the air up, and the vice versa in the summer. When it's just drafty, there's no controlling of the conditioning.
Yeah.
Also, the biggest part, because people always argue, house needs to breathe, we make that house too airtight. You're right, it does need to breathe. I want to know where the air is coming from. So the ventilation system allows me to control it, because when a house is just drafty through the attic, you're just breathing the air that's getting sucked through the disgusting fiberglass. And people who've never went through a 1950s attic, I want them to go, if that's the air they want to breathe, I want them to go into an attic and touch the fiberglass. I want you to go and watch all that nasty dust. That is what you're breathing in.
Yep.
So the problem is the codes are very strict because we're trying to prevent this issue. We want to have an airtight house so we can control where the air is coming from, and we can also have lower energy bills. But the problem is if we don't do those ventilation systems right, the house isn't breathing. Correct. Because the ventilation system is allowing the house to breathe.
Yep.
It's just that
you're open, close. You're getting these spray foam guys coming in, open, closed cell spray foam.
We're making the house super airtight.
And that the hard thing for me is that I come in, I put a roof on it on a new construction building, and I don't know what they're doing after the fact. I could see what the plans are, but so many times, I mean, I don't have to tell you, plans are not always. Houses are not always built to plans.
Yeah, I'll do a projected model for a HERS rating. So I'll do the part of my work before the house is even approved for building. So before a shovel goes in the ground, I'm taking the house as designed.
Yep.
And I'm making sure it's code compliant. So they'll have whatever insulation that they spec'd out, and then they'll go and get quotes for it as the house is being built. And they're like, holy crap, the whole house was closed cell spray foamed. It's $75,000. Like don't quote me on that, but it's expensive.
Yep.
They thought it was going to be 10 grand and it's way more. So then it'll go and change. So I'll get calls 8 months into the project, a week before they're supposed to install insulation, and they ask me because they have to run it by me. But yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode on closed cell spray foam. Like that's as a roofer, that might be our next podcast episode.
That's opening up.
I've been thinking about
box.
I've been thinking about doing like a case study documentary on it because it's such a common topic. But on the aspect of efficiency, closed cell spray foam is a great insulator. It's also an air sealer, so it's makes the house very airtight. Which again, if I was building a house today, I would make it as airtight as possible. I understand ventilation. I understand how those ventilation systems are supposed to be designed because that's what I do. I would build my own house. I would spend a ton of money because unfortunately it costs a lot to do it right. But I would build a very healthy house. The problem is the code requirement for the ventilation is very basic. We have this super airtight house. No drafts are going anywhere. The air is getting stuck. What the code minimum is you're allowed to have a bathroom vent fan. So your stupid bathroom vent fan is allowed to run 24/7 or periodically at a higher speed, and that will suck the stale air out. And there is still some drafts coming through. It's not a perfectly air sealed house, but they're relying on when you open the door, that replenishes that's so stupid to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
The problem is that a lot of people build to code. I just said ventilation systems are expensive. Like the ventilation system I'd put in my house is probably like $10,000 or $15,000 because if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all in.
Yep.
If I don't want to commit to that, I'm going to live in, like my house right now does not have a ventilation system. It's a 1950s house. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the problem is that most people are building to code on the energy efficiency side, and it's good for code, but it's not good for the
longevity of
comfort, efficiency, happiness. Yep. It's not good for the comfort. It's not good for the efficiency. It's definitely not good for the happiness.
And it's definitely affecting longevity. We get a lot of questions asked to us about hot roofs, where they want to encapsulate the plywood and they want ice and water shield. So many people ask us, I just want ice and water shield on my whole house, like the whole roof. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
making a sandwich.
It doesn't make sense unless you're going to do that and then encapsulate the plywood from the bottom too. So if you're going to do open and closed cell spray foam from the bottom, and then you're going to put the ice and water shield, make sure that nothing can get to that plywood. Otherwise, that roof is going to completely rot out.
That's the dew point. But that's where...
So people don't realize that.
Because we're in the world now, we're stepping into the world of building science. And that's where we are. Like if you talk to other HERS raters, like in Libby, Mike Caruso, a great HERS. I love Mike, such a good dude. Very knowledgeable. He's a building scientist. I'm a building scientist. It's a dorky thing to say, but the way we look at it is we look at the science of things.
Yeah.
The people who teach us are like physicists. It's unbelievable. Like I'm a carpenter.
I'm nerdy like that, so I love that kind of stuff.
I love it. That's what got me into the side of it, because my backstory is I was doing concrete carpentry in Manhattan, and my mentor was talking about different aspects of building science, and I was like, how do you know that? And he's like, I'm a home inspector. So that was my evolution, as I got into home inspections because I'm just obsessed with the way things work.
Yep.
And I just can't stop. Like I've become a HVAC designer, and I've just opened up an HVAC shop to install the stuff we're designing because I'm obsessed with how these systems work. And I actually looking at it as like a science project is I want to be the person who installs these systems that are healthy for people and are properly sized and are actually making the house comfortable. So it totally comes from an obsession.
Back to this sick home syndrome. Mm-hmm. Like, so what can we expect with this?
Mold, a lot of allergies.
What are you saying? Like, what will lead up to it? What's causing this?
It's the houses are built too airtight. The ventilation systems are not designed right, not installed right, or they're just doing the bare minimum. So
where does liability fall?
Technically, I do think it has the general contractor is always probably liable, and I think the energy rater kind of falls into it.
But it's what the codes are calling
what's
for.
crazy
so it's like a lot of finger pointing.
It hasn't come to fruition yet. So part of the reason that I did the HVAC thing too is because I have a very good friend who does building home performance. So he's an HVAC tech, and he was obsessed with the building science side. And we have conversations. He's like, I keep going to these 3-year-old houses where they're full of mold and the kids all have asthma.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, that's crazy. And I'm like, what are the ventilation systems? And he installs ERV. ERV is the best ventilation system you can get. He's like, they're all bathroom vent fans. Okay, that's funny. And then guess what? They spent $3 million to build the house.
Yep.
And these people have the money to do the system. It's just nobody's teaching them.
Yep.
The HVAC installer doesn't know how to install it. The designers don't know how to design it. The homeowners don't know they need it. The GC doesn't really, like, a lot of the GCs don't really care because we're focused on, it's luxury build. It's got to be the sexiest house you can build.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be as sexy as you want. If the kids all have asthma. And we're also a generation of, we pay more attention to our kids' ailments.
Of course.
Like our generation, if the sick house, like my furnace at my parents' house was backdrafting for 40 years. And I joked around because when I finally got into this world and I like looked at my parents' furnace and like the thing was kicked back out of 45, I'm like, you yelled at me for failing math all this time. And it was because my brain was rotting from carbon monoxide poisoning, you know? So it's like, we're now all hyper-focused on our kids' health.
And everyone's so happy. But the reality is like, I look at it like, okay, I'm here, I'm putting a roof on. Now somebody comes in after me and insulates and they don't ventilate. But I put a ridge vent in the roof, but they seal up all my soffit ventilation and my ridge ventilation. But how's that become my fault?
I know.
You know, and like it just becomes a lot of finger pointing and it's going to get scary.
I would say if I was like a expert witness in a case, like, and I'd have to point the finger at somebody, like I think the architect is supposed to be that person. And the GC. I think the architect has to design, because now we're looking at it.
What about the plan examiner? Like, how is that not, you're the one examining these plans. You're the one approving it.
Do you know why I wouldn't even look at them? Because I have no faith in them that they know. Because I've had so many conversations with plans examiners, and so many of them have no idea what they're talking about. So it's like
it's hard.
But the problem is they're like, I want this, and it's like, well, I'm not going to ruin my.
So guess what the solution is going to be?
Do it better.
They're going to just separate. They're going to spread it out over everybody, and they say, okay, you're going to pay this much. You're going to pay this much. But at the end of the day, who wants to even go through that? We just let's avoid it at all costs. But at the end of the day, you're also you're required to build like that these days, and you're required to have, the HERS rating. You're required on some of these homes to meet net zero, which is not an easy accomplishment.
The New York stretch stuff in the Hamptons is very, very extreme. My perspective and what I think they're doing.
Everyone's got the money to sue too, which is scary.
And I think they have the money to at least do it right. What bothers me is this will happen a lot. Fire damage house in Selden, middle class family. They just want their damn house back. Insurance agreed to pay for it. The damage was so extensive that now Brookhaven's calling it new construction. New construction technically needs a HERS rating, except they were only redoing the second story, but they were adding a kitchen downstairs. So now like it's new construction because it's over a certain value of the home. Like there's always this gray area, but they're not replacing every wall. So HERS rating, you need a blower door test to see how drafty the house is.
And now you got to replace every wall.
I got to replace every wall, and they're on a budget. They're on a time constraint. Like we're not going to do it the best way possible. Yeah. Like how could I would, like I just said, if I'm building a new house, I'm going to put the most expensive system in. I can't make that call for somebody.
No.
I can't. They're trying to put their house back together so their kids can have a place to call home.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of the new construction right now. It's like fire damages. So how can we hold the person with the fire damage to the same standard we're holding the person building a $10 million home to?
You can't. It's really impossible. But
it's not going away.
It's not going to go away. And listen, we've established that the system's broken, and I think that there's some acknowledgement to it now. And people are trying to fix it. But, let's shift a little bit to the home inspection side of things. You bring up bathroom vents. As roofers, you know how many times we go up in a bathroom and that bathroom vent is just laying in that attic? And I'm like,
I got a picture on my phone from yesterday. It's one of the most common things is bathroom vents venting into attics. It's like funny almost.
So explain to our listeners on why is that an issue?
So your bathroom vent fan is commonly referred to by silly people as a fart fan. It's not a fart fan. It's funny.
I've actually never heard of that.
You've never heard of a fart fan?
No.
Have you heard of a fart fan? Yeah, of course he has. Because we use it as a fart fan. But it's to remove excess moisture because when you're running your shower, you're running super hot, humidity builds up. And we don't want humidity to build up in the bathroom for a million different reasons. So the bathroom vent fan, it takes that humid air and dumps it outside. But to do that, you have to connect the duct from the fan to an outside termination.
To the correct vent, because that's the other problem. You got these static vents that they'll use. That's a roof ventilation vent versus an actual Barone vent or a bath or kitchen vent that has a flap. that only opens when you want the air to come out when the fan's on.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're saying. So you're saying that instead of using just a standard grid that doesn't have louver, we need a louver. So what's cool about the building science side too is like they have cool mechanisms now inside the vent line that will also seal from inside the vent line too. So you have the outside flap, and then you also have an inside flap. But that's
so it's like a double flap.
It's like a double flap, because now we're stopping the cold air from getting in. But very commonly in home inspections, you'll see it on I actually have a comment, new roof, no venting, where I'll see the cutout for the old vent termination through the roof, and I'll see it plywooded over, and I'll see the bathroom vent fan just laying in the attic, just dumping humidity into the attic, which is a whole separate issue. And it's because they replaced the roof. The roofer just roofed over it. Nobody knew better. The homeowner has no idea that this thing exists.
Or in some cases, defense of the roofer is it never was hooked up, so they thought it was a false vent, and that maybe they relocated a bathroom or something like that. Maybe they relocated out of the soffit. Yeah. So again,
I'm not blaming anybody.
A lot of a lot of potential finger pointing, which is unfortunate for a homeowner.
That's where my whole angle is like, you know who is to blame in that situation if that happened in my house? Me. And it's not because I'm in the construction industry, because
but you're not the average homeowner. But I think,
I don't think it's I don't think it's ever going to work. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people like to sue, and you're never going to help the sue happy people. But you know how many homeowners don't want to screw over somebody, won't sue, but they'll just eat it. And it's like, all right.
You mean like us?
That's why I do the knowledgeable homeowner thing, because and that's like my goal as an inspector is like, I don't care if you're not into houses at all. If you're an accountant and you hate the idea of building a house. 50 years ago, people knew stuff about their house. Like I always laugh. My wife's grandpa was a businessman. He was in travel. Looks like your typical like soft hands guy today. He passed away before I met him, but he had his tools in his garage. They kept his garage intact. And this dude had hand tools, and he had projects that he was working on. And there was things that he did. And my mother-in-law, she's like, "Oh yeah, he fixed up the house because that's what you did. You took care of your shit.
100%.
You know, you changed your oil." I'm not saying you have to do that.
Now we got friends of ours that call the electrician just to change the light bulb, you know?
I know. And if you can do that, do that. But my point is, as a homeowner, if you want to be the most successful and happy homeowner, is just educate yourself. So even if you do call the electrician to change the light bulb, know that you pay him $5 for that light bulb and not $500. Know enough to not get taken advantage of. You don't have to do it yourself.
The reality is that like we're in a time in the world where information is so accessible. Like it's at your fingertips. But before we wrap up,
we're talking about the home inspection, and I know the reason I came in today is because we want to talk about solar.
I want to talk. I want to get to that a little bit too. What are you running into when you're doing these home inspections? Are you finding? Because I'm finding a lot of home inspectors are actually having homeowners sign off that they're not inspecting the roof or the solar, because they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know the liability of what's involved.
So I think that's if you were looking at it from the lens of like you're a person looking to buy a house and you know the house has solar on it, you're getting it inspected. What should you do? And the first thing you do is ask the prospective home inspector, like, what are you going to do with the solar? Because technically, the home inspection process has been standardized by New York State. So everything that we look at and don't look at is standardized by New York State. Solar PV systems, the panels, the assemblies, the conduit, the inverters, all that is outside the scope of the home inspection.
Correct.
And one of the things that I do as a home inspector is I love telling people what I don't look at, because it builds instant trust. I'm not a Superman. I want you to know what I'm not doing and what I'm doing, so we can then call the right people. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think newer home inspectors have like an identity crisis, and they want to be like, I know everything. So maybe they might like, I'll look at it. I'm going to look at it, no problem. Here's like my thing. I'm not inspecting it, but I'm doing a visual home inspection on the home. So if there's defective conditions that I lay my eyes on, and I know that is not a good scenario, I'm going to report on it. But at the end of the day, I'm not inspecting it. I'm not inspecting the system. I'm not going to tell you that system's fine. I'm going to tell you that's obviously broken. But if I don't see anything, I'm going to pass it off as like, listen, it seemed to be functioning at the time of inspection, but you need to have a qualified solar inspector to assess because there's also just so much that goes into it.
100%. And people don't realize that. And to be able to get a company like, all right, so ABC Solar installed the system, and now they go to the existing homeowner, that company is not going to sit there and run diagnosis on that system. You'd hope that they're going to tell you, oh yeah, this is what's wrong. Oh yeah. Nobody's going to tell you, hey, this roof was installed the solar was installed on a 3-layer roof. Nobody's going to tell you that, the solar shouldn't have been installed on a roof that had this pitch. They're not diving into it. And unfortunately, we're seeing the repercussions on the second generation solar homeowner that they're eating the cost of it. And the cost of system removal and reinstallation, people are like, it's a ripoff. It's not. You're talking about all new bracketing. Sometimes you're running into wiring issues. So you got, squirrels eat things, raccoons.
You told me, an animal ate the wires, which has been my favorite story. This is how I work. I have conversations with professionals, and then I just regurgitate it to my clients. My new favorite is when I don't see an animal guard around a solar panel, right, I'm like, you probably do need inspection because my solar person told me that they got animals chewing the wires. And they're like, solar needs wires to work. So that's, but this is the thing with a home inspector is, like I said before, everyone goes above and beyond in their own ways. Yep. Now, you have to be careful as an inspector going above the scope because it leaves you prone to liability. It's like the precedent has been set pretty much by judges and then lawsuits where it's like, you knew you weren't supposed to inspect the jacuzzi, but you commented on the jacuzzi. So that means you were accepting the liability of inspecting it. So that is where it is a gray area where it's like a home inspector wants to do the right thing and be like, I see an issue with the solar system. Yep. If they do that and they do get sued and they didn't find another problem with the solar system, they were doing like a non-verbal agreement to do an above the scope inspection. Yeah. And inspect the solar system, and you failed to inspect the solar system properly, now you're liable for it. So that is like, I get too into home inspection stuff.
But you don't get too into it. You're like me and you're passionate about what you do.
And I've seen it happen.
You don't want your reputation on the line.
Luckily for me, I have select clients. I have select realtors because I do so much other work. I'm not taking every inspection I can get. Yep. And I think that helps with my liability a ton. My clients are really, they know they're hiring me because I'm doing the best job that I can. Yep. Nothing I'm doing is disingenuous. Yep. They know that if God forbid I'm a human and I miss something, it was probably because I was answering one of their 7,000 questions, and it wasn't because I wasn't trying. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like that I think is the best liability protection as a home inspector is like just give it your all every time. At least they know you weren't trying to screw them over. People will still sue for any reason, so shit happens. But with the solar, that like it is the gray area for a home inspector. My biggest recommendation, because I coach younger, like newer home inspectors, is like just disclose that you're not. Yeah. Because there's just so much that goes into it. But I did see one recently, and this is a question that I want to ask you. So I'm gonna tell you the story, then I ask a question. House in Dix Hills, solar panels had to be like 15 years old. Okay. On a pretty big second story plane, there was like, no joke, 27 panels on this roof, and they were going within like 8 inches of the edge of the roof.
Back then, they were no setback regulations.
All right, so that's what I figured. I'm like, it had to be a thing. My inspector goes in the attic, and now they left the vertical 2x4 that used to support, like when they framed the roof, it was supporting the ridge. The thing was bent like a banana. The rafters were bent like a banana. I'm like, I want to get out of this house. A solar assembly must have been so heavy. They didn't reinforce the roof. They didn't inspect the roof to make sure it could handle the weight load.
That falls on the engineer. All those calculations.
So even like, let's say, 15 years ago, like, did they just smack panels on and not even check? Like,
I mean, that's something they should definitely look into further. Because
they walk away from the house.
Yeah. Yeah. or walk from the house. Yeah. Because at that point, those are things that you want to take into consideration. And that's why a solar inspection is important.
Some of the real estate agents will say like, oh, well, they're not going to put the panels on the roof if it's not.
That's not true.
Meant to. I was like, so why is that roof collapsing?
Because
somebody put solar panels up there.
Because they maybe didn't do the proper calculations on the engineering side. And, a lot of the times we're coming in for the solar, for even other solar companies where we have to put a knee wall, or we have to do bracing for them, or we have to put collar ties in for them. Or sometimes we have to, sister rafters or completely replace rafters. So there is, there are good solar companies out there that are addressing these things that the engineers are kicking back. But there's other solar companies that just want to get glass up on a roof, and they don't care what the end result is because they're selling off the liability to someone else, and it's the homeowner's problem.
So my perspective with the solar inspection, where I think it actually will make sense, is because we have to deal with the realtors and make them happy. Is I think that the value can actually be in the pre-sale inspection, where you're actually doing them for the sellers. Yep. So hopefully, when the market kind of levels out and it's less of a seller's market, where they're more up to do it, I think that makes the most sense because we need the realtors to get on board with doing a solar inspection.
That's where Solar Roof Check comes in, and that's where we have our program where we actually go out and inspect these proactively, because someone like you isn't legally required to look at it. Somebody needs to still look at it. A lot of people aren't doing in-depth roof checks. So with Solar Roof Check, we do a 20-point roof inspection, and we're doing the solar inspection, making sure where the warranties fall, what's left on what warranties. I mean, with a solar system, you get a lot of warranties. You're getting panel warranties, you're getting inverter warranties, you're getting the bracket warranties, you're getting labor warranties. What's transferable? What's left on it? Is the system producing? Is it not?
That's why I think everything you're doing, if I was a listing agent and I had a house with solar and I wanted to add value to the process because they're making good money on the sale, the problem is I think the real estate process wants to just go with the path of least resistance and like don't even look into it because nobody's going to double check. But as these things happen and as these conversations happen, buyers are going to become more nervous.
But don't you think that the realtor has a little bit of a liability
They
in this
do.
too?
No, they do have plenty of liability. Actually, I've heard that a realtor has as much liability as the inspector that they're referring. So if I miss something, the precedent has been set that the realtor is just as liable as I am. And now there's new laws where if a seller knew of a defective condition and the buyer can prove it, now which apparently has always been there, they just took the waiver out. So now everybody's at risk for that. So that's my perspective is like if I was selling a house with solar and we didn't really know too much about it and we wanted our buyers to feel better, it's like every used car you buy has the Carfax already built in. Have the solar
It's actually, that's what it is. It's a Carfax for solar is what I created.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I've been looking for Suburbans. I need to put, the 17 kids in the car. Every car I look at gets...
You got 18 on the way, right?
Yeah, the twins, actually. Everyone gives you a Carfax. That's my perspective is like, people are nervous. They want to get an accepted offer. They want the inspection to go perfect. House is great. And then go into contract before the weekend. Yeah. Okay, so you want to avoid the scariness of a bad solar inspection, do it with the listing.
Yeah, but they don't realize, yes, they want the house, but they don't realize the liability they take on. So it's scary what you could be buying.
What I hear a lot, too, is people saying, oh, those panels are like 3 years old. The solar company wouldn't install it on a bad roof. Like the roof has to be new. The roof has to be. It's like we just default to, oh, there's solar on it. I actually have to worry less. Like that's the vibe I hear, and that's where I have the conversation where it's like, that's not true. Like nothing in a house is ever
While I walk
that.
you out here, I'd love to introduce you to my service director who is scheduling 30 to 50 solar services on a weekly basis. Services alone. Servicing systems of companies out of business, system removal and reinstallation so people could get their roofs done because they were put on older roofs. I mean, it's just going to continue. And what happens is it makes people less apt to go solar because now they have this whole fear of, okay, there's holes in my roof. There's
the holes in the roof is the biggest concern that I hear. Ugly, holes in my roof.
Oh, the ugly thing people get over because the savings look more attractive.
That's
but
nice.
The holes in the roof is a huge issue. And that's why nationally, a lot of roofers have gotten into solar because that's been the issue. And it's like this solar versus roofing, argument constantly. And it's like the roofers can actually enhance the solar industry. So if the solar companies embrace the roofers that wanted to support them in what they're doing, instead of just charging them to do a roof so the solar company could do the solar and everyone could just make money and move on. Like, I'm seeing the solar companies that are out there that, we're up against that, sure, they'll get a roof done and they'll go for whatever the cheapest price is. I have my accounts shop me all the time, but what happens, hey, we're going to do this roof. They don't know anything about roofing. So they don't know that drip edge is required. They don't know to make sure that there's a water shield.
They can't QA the roof.
They're just getting the cheapest roof, and the homeowner is just like, all right, well, I'm getting it. It works. The monthly payment works,
and we blindly trust the people who are selling us.
And that's the scariest part about it. Yeah. So I know you and I could talk all day, and I love when you and I get to go talk because we both nerd out, and it's a lot of fun. But I just want to thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for bringing me here.
If any of our listeners wanted to contact you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So we're really active on Instagram, Sturdy Joe on Instagram. If you like conversations like this, you can also check out the Knowledgeable Homeowner Podcast, which is going to be one of our great guests. That episode should be out soon. Hopefully, probably by the time this is out, that'll be out. Sturdy Joe, or just look up Sturdy Homes on Instagram, on Google. We got hundreds of 5-star reviews, and like I said, inspections, energy efficiency, HVAC stuff. I'm your guy.
You want a website, phone number?
Yeah, so sturdyhomesny.com, and then our number is my direct line. You can call or text is 631-487-6634.
All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys learned a lot today.